The Bamboo Project. It's been a minute. It's been 3 weeks. The Bamboo Project wholesaling video starts in 3, 2.
Welcome to the Bamboo Project YouTube channel. My name is Donivan Gray.
And my name is Melissa Burnett. We currently have over 300 videos on our channel of our Dr. Sebi inspired diet, travel vlogs, sports, music, clothing, podcast, beauty, and everything us. We live in New York City, and this is episode 15 of our virtual wholesaling series, where we give weekly updates on our journey to close our first deal.
We started this series for people who wanted to get into wholesaling, who don't have any money, who don't have any mentors, and wanted the perspective of people just starting out. Today is February 14th, Valentine's Day, and this is last week's update. So, Melissa, you want to go first?
Okay, sure. What has happened with me in the last 3 weeks? Well, I said in previous videos that I'm focusing now on the clothing project as opposed to putting all my efforts into the wholesaling project. Now, one thing that did happen, I'm not sure if I talked about this before, was that I reached out to a woman named Lisa. This is a while ago, about that property. Oh, snap. I did talk about this. So in one of the episodes prior, I talked about how I was on the fence about whether or not I was going to go forward with getting this property back under contract and trying to wholesale it to somebody that I found while looking for cash buyers. So that person actually called my phone again, and I asked a couple of questions and stuff like that, like what are they looking for? What's their acquisition price? What is their preferred house that they'd like to buy and stuff like that. And it was a good conversation, and I told them that I didn't have any houses right now for them, which was probably a mistake because I did have that other property in the back of my mind. So after we got off the phone, I did text him kind of immediately like, hey, I do have this property here, and I gave the ARV, the projected rehab, I gave the zip code for the property, and I didn't get a response back. So I'm thinking about calling so I could be on the phone and have that conversation and see how that goes. But as of right now, it is very, very cold for that lead. The property is still on the market. So like I said, I'm probably going to give a call and see what happens. And other than that, I've been focusing heavily on the clothing project, and there's going to be videos about that very soon.
This is the update from the last 3 weeks, which would be 16, 17, and 18. The reason why there weren't videos every week was because for multiple reasons. One, I have a property under contract. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to try and close that deal and then have the next video be about that property. However, it was taking kind of long to get that process through. So I'm like, you know what? Let me get a video out because I don't know how long it'll actually take to close the deal. And there are things that were happening in the middle or in the interim time between when I got the deal, when I found the lead, got it under contract, and to where I'm at right now. So I'm going to get into that because that's what the title is about. I wanted to bring up the fact that my girlfriend, Melissa, had said to me that she was going to help me do looking for some properties and look at some numbers 3 hours a day. How's that going, babe?
I said that?
You did.
Well, like I said, there's going to be a clothing video coming up, and that's probably the reason why that didn't happen, because I was focused on the clothing and the clothing and the cooking and the clothing.
Okay. Well, like I've said before in a lot of other videos, they are probably at this point 40 cold calling videos that have to still go up. So I finally closed this deal and it's done. I might take a week or two off from actually looking for more leads so that I can get all the videos out and then kind of go through the process that I already have set up. With this property I have on the contract right now, I have not put up any EMD money. The EMD for this property is $1,500. And one way that I've gotten around actually having to pay EMD is I'm gonna put the contract on the screen. A lot of state contracts will say on the contract, you have 5 days to submit the EMD money, right? So I will use those 5 days to look for buyers. And I don't actually have to give up any money until the 5th day. And that's I have that leeway. On the contract, it will say if it's not specified, you have 5 days. nobody I've ever dealt with has specified it before, so I just always have the 5 days. You can offer or ask for more than that, but a lot of people say if you don't get a deal in, the first couple of days, you probably don't have a deal, which is possible. But one thing I learned with the property I have right now, it's a very unique property. It's not a home run property. It's a very particular property for a certain kind of buyer. I don't think it fits for everybody. So with this one, most of my properties that I have on the contract before, they never go pending. For whatever strange reason, I'll get a property in the contract and I check on Zillow, on Realtor, on Trulia, everything else, and it never says pending. Melissa had got hers in Atlanta under contract, and I think the day or the next day it was pending. So I never understood why that was. And the reason why that was a problem for me is because people would then look up the property and they would say, hey, this property is on the market right now. And I've noticed that when it's pending, they go, oh, it's pending. Is that you? And I go, yeah, that's me. And they go, okay, you have it in the contract. And it's a lot easier to kind of negotiate when it says pending online. So it was very important for me to get pending. And I never knew why it wasn't pending before, because I've never actually gotten to the point of opening escrow. So that's obviously taking the EMD and submitting it to a title company.
Oh, so now it says pending?
Yeah, it says pending before, from like a couple days ago.
Oh, for you. Mm-hmm. Oh.
Right. So I've never had it say pending before. Now that it says that it's pending, I can use that to negotiate with cash buyers. I think the reason why now it says that it's pending is because the agent for that deal had asked me if I was going to give him the EMD money or submit it to his company, because he emailed me or texted me and said, hey, my company never received the Earnest money deposit. And now he said, are you going to give it to your title company? I'm like, I didn't really know, but that's what I always see on YouTube. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to give it to my title company. So once I told him that I was going to submit it to them and they were going to hold it, the property went pending that day. So it seems that if they don't get the EMD money in this state, or at least with the agents I've dealt with, they don't put it pending. So I'm going to always tell them going forward, like, hey, I'm submitting it to them and they'll hold it. So here's how I get out of really kind of having to pay EMD. I will combine multiple different, techniques to not have to pay. So the first one, I'll say, okay, 5 days is what I have. And this is on-market deals. I don't know about off-market deals because I know the EMD situation is a little bit different. You can put up $100 or $1, $50. It's a lot easier to do that. With on-market, though, once I have the property under contract, I have that 5 day, which on a state contract, that's the minimum to have is 5 days. Then what I'll say is I mailed the actual check. So you can mail your check to your title company. That gives you about another 3 or 4 days until the check actually gets there. So now you have, 8 to 9 days, right? Now, depending if it's a weekend, you could say, hey, it didn't get there until Monday. You have to wait until Monday for the property to get through. So now let's say you submitted the deal, got the deal on the contract on Monday. You have the 5 days. So now you have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Then you say you sent it by mail. So now you have those next 3 or 4 days. Now you're at Tuesday or Wednesday. They never got the EMD yet. All this time, you're looking for buyers. Now, you can, at any point, if you feel like it's not a good deal, you can say, hey, these are the reasons why it's not going to work for me. And you didn't put up any EMD money. And because you told them that you submitted it to the title company, from what my experience with this deal right now is, they'll put it pending for you. So I'm like, okay, that's what I've been doing to not really have to give out the EMD money. 5 days minimum. Then I say I'm mailing the check, and then I'm saying that my title company is going to hold it. And this is all for 2 reasons. One, so you don't have to pay EMD, and 2, so the property actually goes pending. I've never put up EMD money before. I've actually had situations where they'll ask me for a picture of the check, which I'll send a picture of a check, but it never came out of my account. So I guess they just wanted to see that I was going to send them a check, which is fine. I never actually sent it. I've had the same thing I said before. I had somebody where I told them I'm going to mail it. I got a couple of days extra to look for a buyer, so forth and so forth. So what I've learned is just combine all of those together, and you have multiple days to look for a cash buyer. This property I have right now in the contract, everything goes well, or everything is going the way it's supposed to go, this will be my first deal, right? So I'm like, you guys can't really see it, but I'm really excited, like on the inside, about closing this deal. And like I said earlier, it's not a home run deal. So it's a 3-1 in Philadelphia, right? And it's a couple of blocks away from the line that would separate where they're gentrifying it and the next, zip code over. So when I talk to people about it, like, ooh, that zip code is not the best zip code. But I know that if they're gentrifying this one area, that's going to move over when all the houses in that area are kind of bought up or things like that. Or if you want to get a house that's near that area, you can still travel into that area and still have that value because you're not actually in it. but you're close to it. It's almost like living in Harlem. It's like everybody wants to be in the city, but at some point they can gentrify Harlem because it's close to the city. That's the next place everybody goes to. So I now have to find a buyer that can actually find that value. What I've learned from watching the show Undercover Billionaire is you have to find the person that finds value in what you're doing. You have to find a buyer for what you're selling. So for me, I'm like, okay, I know I need specific kinds of people who are going to buy this deal. So what I started doing was, which I felt very comfortable doing, I don't like cold calling. I don't know if I can say that. Can I say that? I don't know if I can say that. I don't mind cold calling. I don't want to do it if I don't have to. I don't mind doing it. It's a lot easier if I have a great deal, but when I don't have a deal that's amazing, then it becomes a harder task to do. Normally what I was doing before was calling agents to get cash buyers. And before, it was working. This time it was kind of similar. However, because like I said, the property is not a home run deal, when I'm calling them, they're like, oh, what area is that? No, I don't want that property. Oh, no, how much work does it need? Oh, what's wrong with it? No, I don't want that. The price is too high. So that's what I've been running into. So once I keep doing that, it happens 2 or 3 or 4 times, I'm just like, damn, maybe it's not a good deal. But when I look over my numbers, I'm like, I know this can work if the person can see the same thing that I see on my numbers. So I just kept calling and calling. So I'm going down the list of people that I have. I wrote down all the people in the area that have a house that's similar to my house or that I think this property would fit for. I think it's better for somebody who wants to do a buy and hold because the equity will be there down the line. And if they want to rent it out, there's good rental rates in that area. So that's what I was kind of looking at it for. And funny enough, up the block, there's a property that somebody is renting out each room for. It's a 3-1, just like the property I have on the contract, but they fixed it up and they're renting out each room individually for $700. And that apartment, I think, is like 1,000 square feet, maybe a little bit more than that. The one I have on the contract is 1,371 square feet. So it's bigger and it's a 3-1. So if you do the same thing for that property that you have up 2 blocks away, up the block, and you do it for this property, you can be bringing in close to $2,000 a month from rent on a property that you only spent $100,000 on, maybe $150 once you add renovations in there. So that's how I'm looking at it. I'm like, okay, if I can find somebody who looks at it like this, that would be great. And if they don't want to do that, the rent for that area, for that house size and the bedrooms and everything else in that particular, I guess, zip code is like $1,300. So now, like I said, I have to find people who see that, and when I show them the numbers, they go, okay, I get it. So I'm going down my list. I'm calling people. And now I finally understand what Jerry was talking about when he said that you have to build your cash buyers list while you have a deal. So when I first got this property in the contract, right, I was like, should I keep it on the contract even though the numbers aren't great? And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to get on the contract because something might come out of this. In previous episodes I've talked about kind of doing things that make me feel uncomfortable because I know that there's going to be growth after that, right? So I'm like, you know what? Get on the contract and see what happens. So now that I have it under contract, I've called a bunch of cash buyers, right? And it's so crazy because now in the process of doing that, I called one guy and he was just like, yeah, it's not going to work for me. And now it's funny because shout out to my guy Ray down in Baltimore. When he does his cold calling videos and we're on the phone and he's calling people, when he's on the phone with them, he will do a very long pause. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try and incorporate that when I'm on the phone. So when I'm calling the guy, he's like, yeah, this probably not going to work for us. I didn't even say anything. I just sat on the phone. I'm like, all right. Mind you, my chest is beating fast. I'm feeling uncomfortable. I'm like, damn, should I say something? Should I try and sell the property more? Should I just say okay and hang up the phone? What should I do? So I'm just like, damn, just don't say nothing. Just try and be as quiet as you can. So then he's like, well, actually, this one's not going to work for us, but we do buy land. So if you have any land, then, let us know and we can buy that. And I'm like, oh, that's crazy because I talked about this even maybe weeks ago. All the cold calling I was doing in December and November, people were giving me off-market deals that were actual properties and vacant land. But like I said before, I do not want to get property under contract that I didn't have a buyer for. Now I have a buyer who's like, hey, I want land in this area. And I have a person who has an off-market, 2 properties right now off-market, which are land deals. I'm like, okay, I have to check to make sure that one of them is actually vacant land because I think a property is there. So I'm going to have my cousin go and look at it. And once I get those down, I'm going to negotiate a little bit more down from there and take it to him and see if he wants to buy it. So I didn't have that before. Now I have him for that. I also have a situation where I had called, let's say it's like a property management company. I was very hesitant, or I guess apprehensive about calling them, because I'm like, they aren't the actual person that makes the decisions. So calling them is kind of like throwing, a rock in the ocean and just hoping something happens. Like, you just tossing it and being like, all right, maybe, I guess I'm not this. I don't know. Anything can happen. Tossing a dart in the dark. I think that's what the term is. Something like that. I'm just shooting in the dark. Yeah, I'm shooting in the dark, right? So I called the person, and English was not her first language. So now it's a language barrier of me trying to communicate what I want to her. Because what I do is for deals, which I've learned is better for me, is if I call a property that is on the market for rent, that's normally when I get a better conversation with the person who wants to sell the house, as opposed to if I call agents, which is new. I'll call the agent and say, hey, I have a property. Do you want to, JV on it? Or when I'll go and try and actually find a cash buyer's number. When I call an agent for a property that they're listing for rent, conversations are way better, 100 times better. So I'm calling this person, a property management company, and she's like, oh, you want to rent it? I'm like, no, I want to sell the property I have to the person that you have who owns this one. And she's like, oh, okay, so we can show you other properties that we have. You don't like this one? I'm like, no. I have a property under contract that I want to assign to the person that owns this property. And she was like, oh, okay. So the one that we have, it has 1 bedroom. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, no, I have property. Please want to sell to owner of this property. And she's like, oh, okay. So I kind of talked it up as like, whatever, if it happens, it happens. I just assumed that it was going to just get lost in the wind and nothing will come from it. So the next day I get a phone call. I'm in the bed and some California number calls me. I'm like, who the fuck is calling from California? Mind you, when you're doing wholesaling virtually across the country, you get numbers and calls from everywhere. People I talk to, that comment on a YouTube channel, they might call me. I don't know who's who. So I'm like, okay. And it could be a debt collector. So I'm like, I won't answer it. I don't know. They called me and I answered it, and I just didn't say nothing. I'm like, it could be a debt collector. I don't know who it is. So I'm going to see what they say when I pick up the phone. So I'm sitting there. They're not saying nothing. I'm not saying nothing. They're like, hello? I'm not saying nothing. They're like, hello? Can you hear me? I'm just like, okay, so it's not a scam. All right. It's not nobody I know, but I can't tell who it is. So then I think I hung up. Maybe, or they hung up. I'm like, all right. They called me back twice. I'm like, okay, this is an actual real person. Like, this is an actual person that's trying to get in touch with me. So I took a deep breath. I called them back. I'm trying to find out who they are. This person was the owner of the property up the block that has the 3-bedroom selling it for $700 a month or whatever, right? He called me back. He's like, hey, I really want to look into the property that you have. It's a great zip code. I want to buy more property in this area. And I'm just like ecstatic, because one thing I kept telling myself when I was trying to sell the property or market it was, my job is to find them. There's a buyer for this property. My job is to find them. My job is not to make this a deal for somebody. I know it's a deal. I just have to find the person who it is a deal for. And like I said, this is the person that is the one I think is the best situation for. So he's like, yeah, I want to buy the property. I want to take a look at it. What can you tell me about it? Give me information. And he was telling me, again, this is why it's better to have a property under contract when you get cash buyers. He was saying, yeah, I looked it up. It's pending. What do you want to do with it? I told him what I want to do. And he was like, yeah, that's great. So now this is the part people have to remember. You want to keep that connection with them. So I'm asking, like, hey, do you buy other properties? What else are you looking for? If I have anything else, do you want to buy it? What are your criteria? This guy is buying property that most people don't really buy in Philadelphia. He said 900 square feet. He said 3 ones. He said row homes. And mind you, I find those all the time. So I'm like, now I have somebody on my list who I can call on the phone, which is what I always wanted to be able to call on the phone and say, hey, I got one for you right now. What do you want to do with it? So he said he wants to come look at it. I'm like, that's perfect. Mind you, he's in California. So what he's going to do is, today is Sunday. Tomorrow, he told me he's going to have his inspector come to the property and look the property over. So once the inspector comes and looks at it, he'll give him, I guess, whatever he finds. And then hopefully everything goes smoothly and we get this closed. And this will be my first deal virtually wholesaling. Like, this will be the first one. And I think I would make a couple thousand, not a lot, very small amount. My goal is for right now is to make a couple small deals a month. If I can do 3 or 4 deals a month at $3,000 to $5,000, that's between $15,000 and $20,000 a month. That's great. Like, I can easily pump out $3,000 deals if I have somebody to give them to. So I'm really excited about that. Now, you guys been watching this for a long time, so y'all know where I was at every time I made a mistake, or I got better, or I added something else new to the arsenal that I have. There's a guy in Philadelphia who's a contractor. He also told me that he'll go to the property and look at it. So he's gonna go next week to get the property and give me renovation cost on it. So all the pieces I had all the pieces ready for a deal to be closed. You people who could find it with your agents. I'm doing a cold calling. I'm running the numbers. I have a contractor now. I have people I can talk to kind of get the numbers better. Everything's coming together. All I needed was a cash buyer, and now I have a cash buyer, right? Another thing I did for this deal, which, cause I said, everything I've learned this whole time I've been wholesaling, I'm trying to bring it all together and use that over and over again to repeat deals, right? So I was talking to Jamie. Shout out to Jamie. He's in Texas, and we were talking about hard money lenders and how if you give them the numbers or give them the property, you can kind of use that to see if your numbers would work for somebody who wants to actually get a loan, right? So I called up some hard money lenders in the area just to see, like, okay, I want to know if my numbers are right. So I called up some hard money lenders in the area. I wanted to see if the numbers were going to work for the property, right? Tell me why they approved me for a loan to buy the property. I wasn't even calling about that. One of the people I called, he was excited to give me the money for the property. The property in its entirety might need like $145,000 to $150,000 in acquisition costs. That's including renovation, closing costs, and the purchase price of the property. And he was like, listen, the numbers sound great that you just gave me. I'll give you the money if you have a 600 credit score. He gave me a pre-approval letter right there, pretty much the next day, to give to the agent. And that was honestly the real reason why the agent probably put the property in the contract the way they did, because they were telling me that they had other people who had came to the property and he was going to buy it, but his financing fell through. So he was saying that the owner didn't want to put the property in the contract unless they had proof from a financer that they were going to approve the purchase. So like I said, this lender who I called only to find out about if it's good numbers, he's like, yeah, listen, I'll give you the money. I got you at 35. He said he'll do 20%. No, he told me that he would cover 85% of the acquisition and the construction costs. All I have to do is come up with 15%, which is $20,000. Now, something I've been talking about recently with Radon, who's in Baltimore, we were watching videos about just different ways to buy property pretty much for free. Something that Jerry talked about too is I already have 85% of the money. All I need is 15%, which is $20K. I can go to a private money lender and have them give me the extra $20,000 and come to the table with the full amount. And I didn't put up any of my own money. So I've been thinking about actually buying this property myself and renting it out for myself. Now, Melissa and I, we're still on the fence about it. Like I've thought about doing it, and I'm kind of just like, it could work, but
because there's carrying costs, month to month,
mm-hmm.
that's a part of, and I think the other thing. There's carrying costs that's also a part of that we have to consider month to month if we do decide to take up this project. That's pretty much my main concern, the carrying costs, because we don't have any actual income right now, other than the unemployment that I get. So with that being said, we don't have money to cover that carrying cost. So I'm trying to think what else. I think that's the main thing.
Yeah, so that's kind of it. And I've been hearing stuff about you have to have somebody on site to check on them.
Yeah.
But I have people I know in Philadelphia. Like I said, you guys are watching the video. So I've been trying to build up over time over these last couple of months. So I know people in Philadelphia can go to the property, whether it be my cousin, whether it be TJ who's been helping me out, whether it be the contractor who I've been trusting between now and all the things that we've been through in the last couple of months. There are people who I know who are on the ground there who can help me out. So I can actually ask them to go and look, say, hey, can you check on the contractor, make sure they're getting things done, give me pictures of the property, things like that. So like I said, we've been kind of just thinking, like, should we do this? Should we just buy or try and buy the property? Because my credit was messed up only because my utilization was very high. So my credit cards were maxed out, but everything else on my credit was good. I had a long history. I haven't missed any payments. Everything else on there, all the other stuff they look at was good. The only thing was utilization. So now if we decided the money that we have for Airbnb and moving, we're going to take that and pay off my credit. So now my credit, I'm waiting a couple of days, and my credit's going to shoot up probably, honestly, I think 100 points or something around that. When I put it on Credit Karma, which I don't advise using, but I just checked it to see what they say. It said my credit score would be, I think either on TransUnion or Equifax, it would be like 749 or something like that. once I pay off the $8,600 on my credit. So we're like, if that comes through, by the time I apply for the loan, they'll give me the loan. And on the podcast, I talked about this too. I had my friend help me apply for a PPP loan for a business, and they said they were going to give me $145,000. The only reason I did not get that money is because my credit score was too low. That's the only reason they said when they sent me the email back. So now that I paid it off, I have 3 businesses. So if I apply for it under another business, I might be able to get that amount of money, so I'm close to that. And if we get close to that, we'll have enough money to actually pay off the carrying cost of getting this property fixed up. So like I said, it's just kind of crazy because it wasn't a plan, and we kind of just stumbled into buying the house almost. So we're going to see what happens. My best case scenario is wholesale the house. Like that's step number 1 or plan A is like, okay, wholesale it, assign it, get it out, let them deal with it.
Would you do it as like a buy and hold, or would you try to like flip it, like actually sell it?
I would do a buy and hold.
How come a buy and hold?
So this is why. I think it's probably better for a buy and hold because the rent is like $1,300 in the area, depending on how you want to do it, right? And when I ran the numbers, you can refinance it for like $170. I can do a cash out refinance and take that money out and then buy another property with it. That's why I would do a buy and hold. I don't think it's good for a flip because the numbers are not that great for a flip.
Okay.
So, and like I said earlier, it's next to an area that's being gentrified. So even if it's not maybe next year after that, it's going to be worth more than it is now.
Yeah. Because the reason why I asked is because of like COVID and everything and the moratorium. So it's just like if any of you guys own a property, any rental properties and stuff like that, it would be cool if you could kind of relay the information of what you've been going through with COVID and everything like that, and have people been paying their rent. What can you evict them, so on and so forth. I don't think you can. So it's just like, or if you are, because people are still renting out their homes and still finding tenants. So it's like, are there any special criteria for the people that you're looking for to let rent the house and so on and so forth? That's pretty much Section 8.
Right. I was going to say that.
Okay.
So Section 8 pretty much guarantees you get paid. And that area has a lot of Section 8 people. I learned this from Jamal King. He's, cool with Eric Thomas. And he was saying, look, I forgot what it was. I think you don't get as much from Section 8, but it's like guaranteed though. Like you're going to get this money every single month. And I'm like, listen, that's fine. We don't have any income. So if I don't get $1,500 a month and I only get $800 a month, and then I have to, cover whatever costs I have, maybe it's only get $400 a month, that's still income. And that's not including the actual asset of the property itself. So once it's fixed up, it'll be worth more. And we're kind of like that. One thing I've been doing is I've been talking to people that own properties. So when I call agents, I try and have a conversation with them and, I ask them kind of what they see in the market. And I actually talked to a guy who was actually saying he would mentor me in Philadelphia. Now, I don't know if he knows my situation as far as, that I'm black, number one. I don't know if that's going to matter at all. I don't know if he knows that I'm not working, things like that. Because he was saying he knows a younger person in Philadelphia that he helped to acquire 6 properties, and they currently don't have to go to work anymore if they don't want to. And they're under 30. And he was saying that he helped them do that through real estate and through being an agent. So I don't really want to be an agent, especially not in Philadelphia, because I'm not there. I'd have to move there to be an agent to do that. And I plan to move to Atlanta, so it wouldn't really work. But he was saying that he would sit down, go on Zoom with me and tell me the areas to buy. He would just tell me which ones to buy, how to buy. He owns a bunch of property. I think he said I think it was over 100, over 200. It was some crazy amount of properties that he owned. And I was asking about rent. He was just like, out of all the properties I own, maybe 3 people aren't paying rent. And one of them actually was already about to be evicted before this even happened, before COVID came. And 2 of them actually have COVID situations. He was saying, out of all the properties I have, that's the situation that's happening. I'm like, okay. And I've kind of heard this echoed amongst most people that I talk to. Bigger property management companies, buildings, people own a lot of units. They are like, yeah, people, somebody's not paying, couple, maybe 5, but it's not like this mass non-payment that everybody would make you believe is happening. If you watch the news, you would think that, nobody is paying rent. When I call people that actually own property, they're like, it's not really like that.
Unless you live in our building.
Right, unless you live in our building, because our building has a whole list of people that I saw one time, and it was long.
Everybody here not paying.
Yeah, that's not paying. So there's that. I'm trying to think what else happened with this deal. So I have a contractor going there this week. Then Monday's an inspector. I'm gonna find out about the land deal tomorrow or today. So I also have something on my computer, right? I call it the Dealinator. It's something I created on Google Sheets where it helps me to find leads, or not find leads, but kind of run numbers on leads. And it's kind of like a CRM. I think that stands for customer something management, some shit like that. I forgot. I've heard that. But it allows me to know who I have to follow up with, what properties are already sold. It lets me know which ones are pending, which ones are active. I have notes on there, so like I know, hey, if I call this person, they told me they would sell a property to me for $120,000. So I had that on there. It might be they might have told me this on February 1st, right, or January 1st. So I'll go back and check my notes and go, okay, it's still on the market. February 1st, they told me they would do 120, and it is currently listed at 165. So I have that in the back of my head. So if it comes down anymore, I can say, hey, listen, it's been 2 months. The property on the market still, do you want to buy? And the reason why this is good too, right? It's because when you call somebody, you want to call a person as if you've already had a conversation with them. It's easier to talk to someone when they know who you are, or at least believe they know who you are. So I'll call somebody and I'll say, hey, it's Donivan. We talked a couple weeks ago about the property. You told me that you sell it for $115. They're like, oh yeah, what happened? What's going on? Whatever. As opposed to when I'm calling, I'm like, hey, it's Donivan. They're like, who are you? I don't know who you are. What do you want? So now that I have that to use, it makes the conversation a lot easier. It makes it easier for us to actually kind of get the property sold or get under contract. So that's why I have that Dealinator, right? Now, the major reason why, or the best reason, I guess, for this Dealinator, it allows me to see what percentage property sold for in Philadelphia, because I run the numbers on them. So let's say that my buy price for a property is $85,000, but I see an investor actually bought it for $96,000. I go, okay, I see a trend here, and I have probably 300 properties on there. So I'm looking at them, I'm like, all right, maybe like 200. And I'm looking at that, I go, okay, I'm starting to see a trend. I'm starting to see that people are buying properties for 75%. I'm like, oh, okay. And I said this before, now I can actually look and call that person and say, which is what I've been doing. Hey, I see that you bought a property right over here, just like this. It was a complete shell, and you paid 75%. Now, when I get a property in the contract, I'm going to bring it to them, because I already know what they bought. I know what they like to buy. I know what they buy at. And it helps me to get more property in the contract, because I was offering too low before. And I talked about this before, I think in the last episode, where I was saying that I was going to start doing this. And now that I've actually started doing it, now I can actually see numbers starting to come up. So I'm pretty sure once this property gets finalized, then you're going to start seeing a lot of deals coming out, because like I said, I have buyers. I have a bunch of people who I can actually call on the phone and just call buyers. Now, dealing with agents and having them, or using them to help you, right? Real estate agents do not know about wholesaling. I'm going to say 95% of them have no idea how it works at all. And I'm talking about the ones that have been in this for 40 years, 40 plus years. Anecdotally, there's a person that sold, who wholesaled a property on the Flipman. It was an interview he did a while back, and they're from Baltimore. And they had no idea about wholesaling. This person was an agent for like 40 something years, and she never knew about wholesaling until she watched the Flipman's videos. And then she made like $85,000 wholesaling a property. She had no idea you could do that. So I'm saying this because when I'm calling agents, they still don't really know what it is. So I'm thinking, okay, you guys have cash buyers, because my job is to find a person that wants to buy the property that I have. I'm looking for a buyer for what I have. So I'm like, okay, who buys properties? Investors. Who do they work with the most? Agents. Honestly, probably contractors too. Yeah. I might have to call. That might be the next thing I might try. So I've been calling agents, right? And I talked to, who was I talking to? I think I was talking to Connor. It was Connor. Connor's in Texas. Was it Connor? I think it was either Connor or Julian.
I know that Connor's dad is a contractor.
No. Yes, it wasn't Connor. It was I think it was Julian I was talking to about this.
Julian is the one that does robotics.
Yes, right. That's Julian. He does robotics in Texas. So we were talking about this, right? He was saying that he's noticed that all the agents want is money. They just want to make money, and that's why they don't like wholesale, because they don't make any money. So I'm like, okay, how can I make this a win-win for everybody? Now when I call agents, I'm like, hey, listen, I'll split the assignment fee with you. They don't even know what that means. They're like, what do you mean split the assignment fee? I had one agent tell me, like, is that even legal? How do I get paid if it's a real estate deal? I'm an agent, so I have to actually go through my realtor to get paid. And I'm like, no, you don't have to do that. She's like, well, but it's real estate. I'm like, it's not, you're not the agent for it. You're just, it's a personal investment you're doing outside of you being an agent. So. Well.
Yeah. I think that's so crazy because I'm always here. So I listen into Donovan's phone calls. And like when he speaks to the agents and he's telling them like, yeah, I can give you half of acquisition. They really have no clue whatsoever what he means. Like, and I just think it's crazy because that rule that they have where all of the money on their deals that they're doing with their broker and everything like that has to go through the firm. They think that they cannot touch real estate in general outside of what they do at their job. So if they buy a house or something like that on their own, they're like, oh snap, they're gonna have to get a piece of that. And it's just crazy. And I feel like you said that they don't know about wholesaling. I feel like they don't really know about investing in general, more or less.
Yeah, that too.
Like how investors work and how they look at properties. Like they don't take into consideration that rehab and all that stuff, takes money and how it fits into the price that you're trying to get it at. So, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. So, and that's what I've been learning. So I've been talking to them and they've been really receptive when I tell them I'll give them half. Now, a lot of them have to follow up with because they were very happy to work with me, but they didn't understand the process. They were really like, I don't understand how does it work? I'm like, okay, this is the problem where it's a disconnect on the vocabulary level. I'm using words that I learned from wholesaling with agents. They don't understand that language. And I always talk about you have to know the language of the person you're talking to so that you can communicate to them effectively. So for them, I have to say things like, I'm going to take over the contract, or I'm looking for an investor to take over the contract. They understand that language as opposed to I'm going to sign it. They don't really understand that. When I say I'm going to do a JV deal with you, they're like, I don't know what JVing means. What is joint venture? I don't understand these. Like, what are you saying to me? So it's weird because I'm always assuming that these are real estate words. So they would just know what these words mean, but they don't. So now I have to kind of baby step them through the process and say, okay, here's what's going to happen. You find an investor for this property, right? Now, when you give them the property, you and I will sign a contract on this property that we are getting an assignment fee for this property. It will say that we split the commission 50-50 or the assignment fee 50-50, and we keep that the buyer or that buys the property from the investor or agent that I got the property from, and we get paid from it. And like I said, when I explained it to them a little bit, they're like, "Oh my God, it's so great." But like 3 or 4 of them I have to follow up with to get it. I have their numbers. So I can call them if I have another deal, but for the property I'm working on right now, I need to call them back and say, okay, hey, do you want to do this? Can it work for you? Because like I said, they just don't really understand it.
From the words that they use, which I think is very interesting, is that they don't know how they fit into the deal. Mm-hmm. Like they'll say that verbatim, like, how do I fit into this? Because the way that they see it is that they would be, okay, you want to buy this property, you're talking to me, therefore you're asking me to be your buyer's agent. Like that's what they think initially. Mm-hmm. So you really have to take the time to really explain what you are asking from them so that they can understand how they fit into it, because they really don't know.
Yeah, and one thing I had a lady tell me when I was calling her, she said that same thing Melissa just said, how do I fit into the deal if you already have a buyer's agent for this property? How do I don't get my commission? And I'm just like, what? I'm like, you don't have to be the buyer's. She'd be like, I can't get paid from another buyer's agent. I'm like, okay, wow. So now I gotta like one-on-one wholesaling with her. Yeah. So another pro that I try to use too is I say, listen, you get half of this. Whatever I'm gonna get on this, you get half of that. And they go, okay. I go, now addition to that, you will also be able to get a commission if this buyer that buys this property decides they want to use you to relist it. You also get that commission for it. Also, if in the future I need a buyer's agent, I could come to you as a buyer's agent. You could write up the contract, get 3% from that, then get the assignment fee from me on the half. And when your buyer comes for the property, you get 3% again from that person. And I'm like, this I think is one of the biggest issues with wholesaling is that there's this disconnect. And from what I've been doing over the last 2 or 3 weeks, I'm going to try and kind of bring those things together because agents want to get paid. One thing I've noticed, wholesalers and agents are more or less very similar in the fact that I think they attract the same kind of people. People that want to make money more or less kind of quickly and kind of connecting, A and B and making money in the middle. It's the same thing. It's literally the same exact thing. One of them has regulations on it and one of them does not. So if I can help you get more money and you bring your resources to me and we both close on these deals, I don't see why that wouldn't work. So the biggest issue is just the information gap they don't have.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like we had a video on this as well where it's like agents versus wholesalers, and it's like it doesn't have to be like that. We can literally work together on this. So yeah,
and y'all can make, because see, for me, I'm not really in it for the money. I want to get paid because I have bills and stuff I want to do, but I'll give you get 6% and half. Listen, that's fine. I'll be perfectly fine with that. The last person I talked to in episode 14, was it? Yeah, I think it was episode 14. You can see he was upset about wholesaling, and it's because people come in there, they just be bullshitting them all day, and they're like, damn, I really want to I want to close deals. Listen, I want you to close deals. If you close deals, I close deals. I get paid if you get paid. That's what I want. That's how I'm looking at it. So I'm like, anything else you want to say? There's one more thing I want to touch on. So the last thing I wanted to touch on was the fact that I watched Lili Thompson's, she had a live on Instagram. I was in there for a little bit, and she had somebody in her boot camp who had closed, I think it's their first deal, and they have 2 more in the contract. Now, the craziest thing about this call, right? Because this is something I talked about on here that I advise not to do, which is also something I kind of did with this property. And I've talked to Ray Don again, who's in Baltimore, about this same thing. He had a property in Atlanta under contract. So one thing I've noticed is that if you get a property under contract that's too close in amount to what it's listed for, you normally aren't going to find buyers for it. That's what my experience has been. However, this guy was saying that he was finding properties under contract and then assigning them to another buyer in the area for higher than it was listed at.
Yeah, that's wild.
I talked to TJ about this. We talked about this like months or weeks ago. We were laughing like, oh, this person is crazy. Why would this girl get a property in the contract and then try to resell it for more? We were laughing. Me and Radon, he had a property in the contract in Atlanta for like $99. He was going to wholesale it for $109. And everybody was like, I had brought it to another person in Atlanta, a contractor. He was like, what? Why would I? I'm not doing that. That's $10,000 more than I'm not doing that. And then I'm just like, I forgot his name. And I think it was Cass in Indiana. Same thing with him. The numbers were just too close. And I'm like, if the numbers are that close, it's probably not going to be a good deal. However, I come on the live and the dude was like, yeah, man, it was 85. I got it for contract for 84. Honestly, I think he got it under contract for asking price. Now, I think he got it probably under contract for asking and then resold it for higher than asking, which is crazy. It's just crazy to me. So, like I said, if I can start doing that, I might have to figure that out. So I might have to try to for Lili's course one of these days and see. Once I get my couple of deals, I have some money, I might pull up to the course and be like, what you talking about here? What's going on in one of these boot camps?
And then honestly, you can do that right now if you have the money for a double close. If you can do a double close, then you can buy it at whatever price you want to buy it for and then relist it for higher because they won't see what you bought it at.
Right. Now, the only issue with that is the margins have to be a lot larger to cover all the expenses.
And the carrying costs and so on and so forth.
No, it's not really no carrying costs when you double close. That's not really carrying costs.
Until you sell it again.
Yeah, but it's not. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. So yeah. I was gonna say, like, when I see those kind of deals, if it's like a $5,000 spread or $8,000 spread, that's who's gonna be eaten up by your closing costs. So it's it has to be like $20,000-$30,000 you're gonna make when you do it.
And then with the carrying costs, I was just saying that, like, depending on how long if it takes you a month or 2 months for you to actually find a buyer to sell it to for the higher price, then you're gonna have to pay carrying costs for that. But if in a scenario that like what Donivan was thinking of, where you already have a buyer but you don't want them to really see what you got it for, then you should have a wider margin for that.
Yeah, I think that's like higher tier level wholesaling because I mean honestly we might be able to do that because when I called the buyer for the property I have right now in Philadelphia, He was actually asking me. It's so crazy. He was like, so we got double close on this one? I was like, are we going to double close on what? Who's double closing on anything? I said, sir, listen, we are doing an assignment. I am not buying nothing. I will give a contract to you right now, and you will take the I'm not double closing. Come on, fam. I don't have that kind of money. No.
Everyone thinks that Donivan is a seasoned investor, and it's hilarious. They
Listen,
think that he's...
Nope.
They think he's been doing this for years.
This makes a double close to me, and I'm gonna shit on myself. I'm like, you think I'm gonna double close on this? I'm like, I can't even get the EMD money to pay for this. You think I'm gonna close? I mean, like I said, hopefully, if all the loan stuff goes through and everybody else bails, and we end up buying this property, I think that'll be a funny story. It's like, wow, look at us buy a property before we wholesaled one. How did that happen? Like that would be a good video. Like how we tried to wholesale and accidentally bought a property. So with no money down.
I'd click on that.
I click on it too.
And then that all goes to show that your energy and knowing what you're talking about goes a long way.
Oh, this is just a little tidbit. It's not like a session or anything like that. When you're wholesaling, right? They always tell you to figure out what the cost for construction is, right? Or rehab. And yes, it's very important to figure that out. But what you need to realize that you're doing is you are an appraiser, right? You're trying to figure out what the appraisal is or what the property will be appraised at. As a wholesaler, right? It's so funny to me because you have to know every single aspect of real estate to be a great wholesaler. You have to be able to appraise a property for what the value in the area says it's worth. So the camera just died, and now we are using an iPhone to film the last, I guess, 2 minutes of the episode. Last thing I was saying was that it's funny because as a wholesaler, you have to learn every single aspect of real estate. Construction, you have to learn how much it costs to fix a house, roof, leak, water, all that stuff, foundational issues. You have to find out how to find buyers, communicate with agents. You have to figure out pricing. You have to figure out what's another thing you got to figure out? Just more or less how to sell everything. You got to learn everything when it comes to wholesaling. So the reason I'm saying this is because I don't think that people should, like I said, think of themselves as a wholesaler. You should not call yourself a wholesaler. That's not what you do. It's actually a disservice to what you do. If you're good at wholesaling, you're not a wholesaler because you have to learn everything else. Wholesalers only think about get a property under contract for some obscene amount of money and try and have somebody else buy it for even more obscene amount of money, and I get some money from that. That's not what you do. So appraisers is what you have to do, and the first step is figuring out what the value of the house is. Then you have to find somebody to buy the house. It's more or less like an agent. So with that being said, Bamboo Project